every abusive relationship, there are a number of stages that the abuser takes. These stages is what we call the cycle of abuse. We call it a cycle because they seem to be repetitive and moving in the same pattern. What the couple could be conflicting about could be different, but the same pattern is always followed. The cycle of abuse starts from a point where the couple is very happy to be with each other. They go through what we call a honeymoon stage, and in the honeymoon stage there seems to be no problem. Everything goes on well. Both the abuser and the abused are happy with the relationship and they move on well. Then there arises tension. In the tension stage, the abuser creates a conflict. The conflict might run across having rules, not being satisfied with the abused friend, not having rules followed, or even sticking to certain religious or customary beliefs. That creates a lot of tension between the people in this relationship, and every single mistake will add on to the tension. Now, at this stage, the abused person starts to adapt to the abuser. So they try as much as possible not to make mistakes. They try as much as possible to follow the rules that they are being told and actually to just please the abuser. The attempt is always to reduce the tension. But unfortunately, this tension does not reduce, it only increases. And therefore, you go to the third stage, whereby we talk about increase in tension. In the third stage, where there is build-up of stress, now in this build-up stage, this is when now this stress that has been there and the strain that has been there builds up. And the abused person in this stage now starts to seriously adapt to the situation, starts to have secrets, starts to try and please the abuser, because then they don't want them to get more annoyed. The abuser might now start blaming the victim here for not following what they have been told, for not being loyal to them. They might even do things that will add more to the abuse, like following them, recording them, gathering up evidence, and every time now starting to build more and more on guilt, so that the abuser feels more dominant, feels more in control. However, as this continues, the victim in this case becomes more guilty and starts even to adapt elsewhere. That elsewhere means with other friends, with relatives, and starts informing people that they should not be coming home at any time, not to annoy the abuser, starts informing people that they should be careful around this person that they love so much. After the build-up of stress, we go to the fourth stage. And in the fourth stage, this is when the abuse happens. This is when the abuser cannot hold it anymore. They get very angry and they do the actual abuse. The actual abuse here could be turning violent and therefore hitting, beating. It could be also sending them away, chasing them away at night, denying them their rights. There are people who would deny you food. There are people who would deny sleep. There are people who would deny even the right of association. So you're not supposed to talk to your relative. You're not supposed to talk to any friend. You're supposed to be isolated, and so on and so forth. So when the actual abuse happens, then we go back to the honeymoon stage. And this is when the abuser now comes and says how sorry he is. He will have some privileges. He will even buy presents, make promises of the abuse never happening again, and try to reconcile again with the victim. The victim here kind of believes that the abuse is over. They will see how good the abuser is. And all this time, the abuser will still be using guilt and say, for example, that, I did not mean to hurt you. It's only because sometimes you annoy me. So building more on the guilt. And when they build more on this guilt, then the abused person will feel like this person has changed, will feel that everything is okay, will take in the presents that they are given, and therefore the cycle starts all over again. So what makes it difficult to get out of an abusive relationship given this cycle? The first thing is that every time the abuse happens, it is followed by another stage, that is the honeymoon stage, which kind of says, like, though the relationship is not very good at times, then it is also extremely good at other times. And most of the time you'll hear victims saying how good the abuser is if only he only takes care of his temper, if only he would control himself more, not knowing that they are fully trapped into the cycle of abuse. Then, of course, the other thing is that the abused person have got a way of creating dependence, and make sure that the only place that this abused person can get solace is in him or her. And therefore, they will excommunicate the victim from relatives, from friends, and from any other kind of support. Which means then, when the abuse happens, the only place that the abused person can run back to is to the abuser. In case you feel trapped in a relationship where there is an abuse, then one thing you should start by doing is recognize that this is an abuse and that you do not deserve to be in an abusive relationship. Actually, nobody deserves to be in an abusive relationship. There are times that you might need help, that you might need someone to come and help you look at things more objectively and help you to create means as well as strategies to come out of the abuse. There is no one way of solving the problem of being in an abusive relationship. Everyone will have to find a way that works for them. Can someone be caught in love? And first we have to understand what we mean caught in love. There are so many people who feel like they are cheated, like they were taken for a ride in a relationship. And I think that would be the worst kind of feeling that anybody would like to go through. Yes, there are times that people are caught in love. And the situation here is that one person could be loving another person who does not have the same kind of feelings towards them. And this is where we say that, like even when you're in a loving relationship, you're in a relationship that you feel like you're head over heels with, it is always good to be very objective at times and look at whether the feeling that you're having is a reciprocal one. Does the same other person also have the same kind of relationship? There'll always be people who are more objective, like friends, like relatives, who would give you a view that maybe you're not looking at, and they will always give you feedback though. So one way of noticing that is looking at the feedback that you're being given by people who care about you. And before dismissing those feedback, and before even thinking that they would be envious of you, that they don't appreciate you or something like that, you also have time to reflect and see how true is this. And then when you find it to be true, when you evaluate yourself and see this to be true, then it's time to ask yourself, do I need to continue with this kind of relationship where my feelings are being conned or where I'm being taken advantage of? And it is also good to sincerely share with the person that you are forming this relationship with and ask them more about what they feel about you as a person. The other way that a person can feel cheated in love is when there is somebody else. There is another person apart from you. So the relationship is not just about you, but it is also about someone else. And the feelings and the intimacy that you deserve, you are not being given the whole of that because of the third person. And it is good to ask yourself, do I fight for this love? Do I bring out the other part, the third person in this relationship? Or what do we do with the other? And the other is a topic that needs to be discussed in a relationship with a lot of sincerity. What do we do about the other? Do we eliminate the other? Or do I move on without this relationship and leave it for the other? That is a question that everybody has to answer. Sometimes leaving the other could be also difficult because it depends on how much intimate has the person gotten with the other person. And there are three ways that people can get to the other. One is what we call emotional infidelity. Emotional infidelity just means that the person has shared emotions that are not meant for the other person, but for the person that they're in an intimate relationship with. Now, this answers the question of what if nothing happened? It's not whether something happened, it is about whether you shared the emotions that were there. The second one is sexual infidelity, and you can have sexual infidelity without having emotional attachment. So maybe you went out for a party somewhere, things got out of hand, you took too much, and in the morning you find you have gotten into a sexual relationship with someone. So when it doesn't attach, when there are no emotions attached, it becomes easier to get out of such a relationship. It becomes also easier for the couple to work through that. But then the hardest to come out of is whereby there is a combination of the two, where there was an emotional relationship which was also combined with a sexual relationship, and therefore the bond becomes stronger. Coming out of that becomes more harder, and the couple or the people in this kind of relationship have to talk more deeply about it and see how to go about it. Now, if it becomes so hard for this particular people in a relationship, then they can seek a relationship counselor who would help them to go through the facts and what they need to do.